Hello everyone and welcome to episode 1 of AMRS Unlocked. We're coming to you live from the AMRS studios here at Fuzzy Media. We're putting together this live stream program for you because at the moment we can't go racing thanks to the COVID pandemic. So today we're going to do some interviews with some of our category managers and some of our competitor group, and to help me do that I want to bring in our media team. So we'll start off with Kylie King, who's aka Councillor King these days. She's running for council up there locally. So hello Kylie, and Kylie is our lead pit lane reporter and extraordinaire of knowing all our customers and stuff down there in pit lane. So thank you Kylie, lovely to see you.
Great to be part of it, and hello from Albury-Wodonga. A lot of joy during COVID right on this border community. 1 minute we're out of lockdown, next minute we're back in. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of you guys listening as well are going through similar situations. But great to be joining you from the home office, which I've been very familiar with over the journey, but can't get more excited to be back on track and catching up with everyone. So if we can't be on track, this is the next best thing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kylie, and also Tony Shebeki, our lead commentator for the series. Tony's background, obviously, with both with supercars and Porsche, leaves no reason to do a formal introduction of his skill set. But Tony, as a bit of a last-minute change for you, mate, you're now in the COVID jail of a 14-day quarantine as of yesterday. Thanks to you visiting a local supermarket, I understand. So, but welcome, albeit over Zoom, mate. So,
exactly right, Matt. G'day to you, Matt and Kylie and everyone out there. Yes, unfortunately, a visit to my local Woolworths has cost me and I believe 32,000 other people in Altona North the opportunity of being in lockdown for 14 days, or actually in quarantine for 14 days. So I can't go beyond the boundaries of my property. Otherwise, I would have loved to have been in the studio with you today, but unfortunately that's not happening.
I was expecting you sitting right here next to me, Tony, as my right-hand man to help me deliver this show, but that's okay. As they say in showbiz, the show must go on. So the show's going on. And the man who needs no introduction, ladies and gentlemen, the ladies' man himself, Lachlan Manswell, Beauty in the Geek himself. Hello, Lockie. Welcome to the show, mate. Lovely to see you.
Hi, Matt. Yeah, thanks for having me. And unfortunately, like the other members of the media team, I'm also in lockdown and have been now for over 8 weeks up here in Sydney. Can't wait to get back to a racetrack, as I'm sure my fellow Sydney-siders can't either. And it's hard to believe that we haven't actually had any AMRS action since way back in March. So everybody's itching to get back onto the track, and it must be so frustrating for you, Matt, as the series manager. Kicked off with a really strong round at Sydney Motorsport Park back in March. Round 2 at Morgan Park. A COVID outbreak in Queensland forced the cancellation of that event. And then what was supposed to be round 3 at Winton has been postponed time and time again due to the continued COVID situation. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel, Matt? And what can we look forward to with the AMRS moving forward?
Yeah, well, Lockie, it's a very good question, and I'll just pull that crystal ball out of my left pocket and get my direct line to our premier, and we'll be able to answer that. But yeah, look, you hit the nail on the head. We're now up to our 3rd reschedule of that Winton round. We have a tentative date in the middle of September, which we're looking towards. But that's obviously very, very much, and as I've been very open to all our competitor groups, very much about us coming out of lockdown, both metro and regional. Whilst Winton is regional Victoria and very much northeast Victoria, 80% of the customers for that round are all basically out of Melbourne metro. So even if I could deliver a regional round, it just it's not going to work commercially for the series. So so look, we have a tentative indication of sort of middle of September. Whether that happens or not is to be determined, and then, but if not, you know, there's potentially some stuff maybe later in September, early October, which we could look at. But yeah, very much in the gods of the COVID situation, particularly around Victoria and coming out of lockdown at the moment. So, but as to my levels of frustration and sleepless nights and winding myself around your bends, it's at an all-time high, I can assure you. So yeah.
The 2 jobs you wouldn't want at the moment in this world would be a series administrator or the premier of a state.
And I actually think
run away from those jobs.
And I actually think the series manager for AMRS actually would be over and above the Premier of Victoria, to be honest with you.
I have no doubt, Matt.
But I digress. We've got the really, really unfortunate thing about this, and I was only saying this to some of the management team at BAC recently, was that we had such a healthy series to deliver this year that was going to cover itself financially, deliver some great results for a lot of our national categories, and us be able to, fly the flag from a branding perspective and fly the flag to give everyone some value-based and fun race meetings that the customers have been engaged with, and they're giving us feedback about what they want to receive at a race meeting, and we committed to deliver it, and we're on target to deliver it, and yet literally just had the rug pulled out from under you. So very frustrating that we haven't had a clear run yet of being able to, we thought in 2020, you think, oh well, put it down to a bad year and tuck it under the mat, and then we move on to 2021 and we can all live to see another day. But we're basically repeating what 2021 was now. So anyway.
If we turn our attention back to that Sydney Motorsport Park round back in March, and KK, I know that you were on the ground there. There was some tremendous racing. We had several of our core categories in attendance. We had a 4-hour endurance race for Super GT, which was combined in a field with New South Wales production sports cars for that weekend. We had the opening round of the Australian Formula Ford Championship and the Australian Formula 3 Championship, and we had TA2 there as well. I know that it's such a long time ago now, Kylie, but what were your highlights from that weekend?
Look, what I really loved about that weekend, Lockie, and I'm sure the boys would agree as well, was just, I guess, having some events under lights. It was something that you don't get to see very often. In Sydney Motorsport Park, you know what it's like at the best of times, fast racing. So that was a real highlight. And you talked about the endurance races with the Super GT 4 hours. I wasn't really match fit for pit lane duties lasting that long because I missed a whole year. But, geez, I wasn't complaining, that's for sure. And just the noise of the TA2 as well, those guys. And then the other extremes, you've got obviously those young racers, as you say, in Formula 4 and Formula 3, just showing what the young guys are capable of. And also really fun to catch up with Stephen Richards. You've got this next generation of Clay Richards crafting his motorsport as well. So caught up with some old friends, saw some new friends, and saw some exciting racing as well. And just as I was getting back into it, like most of us, we've had that little pause, but it was a nice little teaser to know what's coming up once we get back racing again, because it was a real perfect way to get the season back on track. And we know once we are back again, we've got all the elements there to have some fantastic racing with some exciting categories.
Mm-hmm.
So on tonight's show, we are going to catch up with, as Matt alluded to, some special guests from some of our headline categories. Barton Mawer, very, very talented driver who's had experience in a lot of different motorsport categories, both here in Australia and overseas. He's going to join us for a chat about Super GT Australia. David Atkin, who many of you will know as the importer for Kumho race tyres. He's going to be joining us to talk about the new Kumho V8 Classic Racing Series, which will be kicking off very shortly. Garry Roberts joins us to give us an insight about the mini muscle cars. And then Tim Macrow, the open wheel specialist himself, he's going to join us to talk all things Formula 3. So it's going to be good to catch up with some of these motorsport personalities that are part of the AMRS and go for a deep dive into the analysis, I suppose you could say, for some of our core categories.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lockie. And we're looking forward to those interviews coming up shortly. And thanks so much for the time you guys have put in for today. Thank you. I can't stress my thanks enough to you for your continued support through the years as we turn things on and turn things off. But thank you once again, or to all of you for your continued support, so both through your media connections and just supporting me in general as far as managing the series. So thanks all to all of you. Let's get cracking, ladies and gentlemen, with our first interview.
One of the new additions to the AMRS program in season 2021 has been the Super GT Australia Series, which kicked off under lights with a 4-hour enduro at Sydney Motorsport Park, which was held in conjunction with the New South Wales production sports cars. like so many endurance races that we're used to, it was an absolute cracker. We had a great variation in strategies and unfolding storylines, and it culminated in a grandstand finish with the race being decided on at the very last lap. One of the drivers competing in the race was Barton Mawer, who teamed up with Nick Kelly in the industry clothing Audi R8. And they were in amongst the lead pack all night long and ended up finishing inside the top 5. And Bart Mawer joins us right here on AMRS Unlocked. G'day, Bart. How are you going?
Great, Lachlan. How are you? Good to see you coming back down to earth and working with AMRS again.
Yeah, good to be back, mate. And I have to ask the question, how did you find that 4-hour enduro under lights? Obviously, you've had a lot of experience in sports car and endurance racing over many, many years, both here in Australia and overseas. How cool was that event from your perspective?
Look, I'll explain it from a couple of points, but as a driver, it was fantastic. And it was really, as you said, it unfolded in a most bizarre way at the end, where the 4-hour race I thought was a great length. It meant that we could use these GT cars to their full potential. We've just seen them do 24 hours at Le Mans. So these sort of 60-minute races are good for the programs we often get pushed into, but 4 hours even isn't a big stretch for these cars. So it's great to do some longer runs, but not so long where we needed full-on, big refueling tanks and a different set of crew to do refueling and all of that. So we sort of kept it simple, but sort of long enough. And then the strategy seemed simple. And then as we kind of got going, and even in the race and then unfolded at the end of the race, we realised how complicated it became, and it sort of caught a few of us out, didn't it?
I think one of the problems is that, yes, it's a 4-hour race, but it's 4 hours plus the time that it takes for the leader to take the checkered flag after the 4 hours has elapsed. And that caught a few teams out when they worked out that that extra time was actually going to cause one of their drivers to exceed their maximum permissible driving time. So we saw a couple of teams get penalised, and we saw a couple of teams having to come in for last-minute pit stops and driver changes. And like I said, we saw the lead change on the very last lap as a result of that. But again, deferring to your experience, Bart, and looking at the fact that you've done so many different endurance racing events all over the world, I'm interested in your thoughts as to where Super GT Australia fits into the Australian motorsport landscape and how you can see it being a successful category for the AMRS moving forward.
Yeah, I think firstly that it just covers so many cars, doesn't it? And the from the Porsche Cura Cup GT3 cars right through to pretty much close to the current spec GT3 cars. So there's a lot of those around in this country, and as great as those GT3 cars are, and when they become second-hand, they become, in race car terms, good value or a reasonable purchase for some people, but the running costs and then to run on the full-fledged Australian GT program is quite expensive. So this level, I think, is a really good spot where we're using these cars, we're using them to what they can do in 2-hour, 4-hour races, and then the two driver formats. So we had a lot of the pro drivers there. So we had Luke Yordan obviously winning in the Mercedes AMG with Vince Moretti, and then that sort of blend of being able to have pro drivers like myself with the AM drivers, and in a length of race where we're really testing our stamina. It was so good, and I think for the inaugural event to have the numbers we did, and certainly the talk amongst the paddock and the drivers I spoke to wanted more, and obviously we got the COVID issue. But if we were able to map out this year like we wanted to, and the AMRS could keep going, I got no doubt it would just keep growing and growing, and sort of capturing the guys from the sort of, I wouldn't say the grassroots, but sort of club level, trying to step up, and then the GT guys wanting more track time and going, well, this is a good cost-effective way of coming back to a track that's local to me, or going to a newer track, or a track I might race out later in the year. So I think dragging those both ends of the spectrum, I think, is what's going to make it healthy.
And I think having under lights was something new, wasn't it, Lockie? Just to have you guys, and as you say, drivers of different experience and levels competing under lights, this looks pretty cool. And I guess, with all the motorsport I've covered over the journey, to have a series like AMRS to allow you guys to have the track time, and that to me seems the popular thing, that if we can give these guys the track time, that they're really relishing it, and opportunities, racing under lights. I mean, who would have thought?
You're right, Kylie. It just feels so long ago now. I forgot that was the first time a lot of people, me included, got to race at SMP under lights. And they've done such a good job there. There was some fears. Some of the drivers hadn't had track time before the race under lights. And I spoke to them afterwards, and they'd forgotten that it was under lights and it was nighttime. The vision was that good. And in a way, in some corners, it's better because the darkness around on the peripheral is just darkness. And so you just really get to focus on the track and the line. So that worked out really well. And you're right, too, that length for these teams, when they rock up with their transporters and their trucks and they're there, running another couple of hours isn't the big cost for a team coming to the track. It's having the people there, committing their time. So they really relish this extra track time, and you're right, we don't get that at a lot of other programs.
Your co-driver, Bart, Nick Kelly, he's obviously classified as an AM driver. He's a very successful business owner who owns the well-known industry clothing brand. But he's had a lot of success on the racetrack as well, and he's probably one of the better AM drivers going around here in Australia, you would have to say. Obviously, you and him were driving the Audi together at Sydney Motorsport Park, but we've seen that he's recently purchased a Mercedes AMG GT. How's he going with adapting to that car, and what are the plans moving forward with it?
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because it was at the end of that first meeting, that first 4 hour we did at SMP, and look, we were second across the line, but got a penalty like you mentioned before, but we weren't going to win that race on pace, and the car and the combo that won, and they did a fantastic job, Luke Jordan and Vince Moridi, in the 901 Racing Mercedes, they really outclassed us. And Nick sat down and said, what have we got to do to win these races? And the simple answer was to get a Mercedes. And so that's how serious Nick was taking this. Make no mistake, it wasn't just a one-off meeting and let's have some fun. His idea of fun is to win. So that's what spurred it on. That Sunday night, basically, debrief after SMP, first round AMRS. So we looked around, and there was a car available in Melbourne, and then Nick has since raced it at Bathurst in Australian GT and at Tailem Bend, where he ended up, I think, 5th outright and 2nd in class in the second race there in his second weekend. So to answer the question, the Mercedes has been fantastic. Over one lap, it is not faster than the Audi R8 he's been racing previously, but it just seems to be better on his tyres over the full length. And these longer races, these 4 hour races we're looking at, suddenly you need a car that's going to be good in all conditions. So that's when the track gets slick, when the tyres are old, when you've got a double stint at some point. And the Mercedes, the front engine, just seems to be a little bit more consistent over those long runs at the moment.
Matt, do you have any questions for Bart?
Bart, I just wanted to say thank you once again for your support at the beginning of the year, and fantastic that you and Nick supported the event with us, and it was really, really good. I know I came down and had some good chats with you down in the pits during the race and sort of see how it went and how it was going and all those sort of things, as I do with all the teams, just to make sure they're having a good time and there's anything we can do to make their experience more enjoyable. But it was really, really good to have a chat with you. It was a very uncharacteristic error of yours personally when in the top 10 shootout, when they threw you in the car for the top 10 shootout and you had your little bit of a lose. It wasn't so much of a little bit of a lose, but mate, you threw it away basically. But very uncharacteristic for you, mate. Knowing your background and knowing your experience, particularly at SMP, one of your local tracks, to your workshop, very uncharacteristic of you, mate. And I just want to say thank you so much for your support, and excited to see. I saw the purchase unfolding and stuff when with that GT3 Mercedes that we're just talking about, and I'm excited to see that running at an AMRS round, hopefully very soon, actually, and it'll be good. How's it like from tyre wear and things like that? Is it better than the A8 from the Audi R8, or how does that work?
Yeah, Yeah, it is. Look, the Audi tends to be, being a mid-engine car, its weakness is the back end, and sometimes the rear can step out. So the Mercedes is the other way. It tends to be an understeer car, but that's a stable platform. And in these longer races, that tends to be a more consistent package. But it's interesting, and it just feels like so long ago now, doesn't it?
It does.
But that top 10, when I did throw it away, and I think that is just, I knew we had to really put on the line to be able to be quicker than Luke Jordan to get pole position, and we were just really going hard for the one-lap shootout. And none of us were there just to drive around and just soak it up. We were all really pushing hard, and like you say, it's an uncharacteristic mistake from my behalf, but that's how hard we were all pushing. So that front pack we had, I think it was about 5 or 6 cars. They were high quality, really fast cars with good drivers in, and Super GT is really going to keep going. And I mean, obviously, this COVID's a big block out of where we were going to go with it, but I got no doubts this will really pick up as we get to the track again.
Yeah. Thanks, Bart. And it was just, and you're dead right. Those front, you could literally throw a blanket over those top 5. It was a top 10 shootout, but even the first 5 or 6 cars were just like there was, hundredths of a second between your qualifying times and then the top 10 shootout, and it was you're right. You're absolutely going for a break, mate. And again, we really appreciate your support, and Nick as well, of course, and really good to have you there. And look forward to seeing you then at a round soon. So.
Yeah, the future's definitely looking bright for Super GT, and there's no doubt that Nick Kelly and Barton Mawer are going to be among the front runners. Bart, thank you very much for joining us here on AMRS Unlocked, and we can't wait to see you trackside once we get back to racing.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on board, and I'm really looking forward to joining you and seeing you at the racetrack soon for the next Super GT round.
Really excited to be talking about a new series joining the AMRS. It is the Kumho V8 Classic Racing Series. To tell us more, we say good day to David Atkin. David, something for everyone, and race fans, they're going to be pretty excited to see you guys in action.
Yeah, we think there's a big opportunity to keep the old cars going. They've been in production since the end of the Group A era in the early 90s to right through to 2012. So there's a large number of chassis that are out there in the hands of collectors mainly now, and they're looking for somewhere to run their cars safely.
Yeah, and you talk about safely, and I think one of the things, the starts are a little bit different, rolling starts, am I right? Just to be a little bit easier to protect these cars a little bit. We don't want to damage them. There's some beautiful machinery out there competing.
Yeah, these cars cost a lot of money to get on the track every round, and a lot of them have been restored to their original liveries and to their original specifications, and they don't want any of the start line incidents that we see fairly frequently in the main game sort of series. So what we've thought is Kumho is also the tyre supplier to the National Sports Sedan Series and New South Wales Sports Sedan Series, and those are similar, powerful, expensive cars to run, and a rolling start is the best way to get these cars going.
Now, Lockie, I know you must be pretty excited to be involved with these guys. Bring back some memories of some classic racing.
Well, it's going to bring back a lot of childhood memories for me, because you go back to when I was a kid growing up, so late 90s and early 2000s in particular, where you had the VT and the VX Commodores, the EL and the AU Falcons, and then into the Projects Blueprint era, which started in 2003 with the VY Commodore and the BA Falcon. And, it's super pumped to see cars synonymous with names like Scaife, Lowndes, Bow, Murphy, Ingle, iconic names of Australian V8 touring car history, those very cars back out on the track. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. The question that I've got for David, because a lot of people will be familiar with your attendance at motorsport events all over Australia as the distributor for Kumho race tyres, how much have Kumho decided to support this V8 classic racing concept, and how excited are they about seeing these cars on the track?
We need to go back in time. Kumho Tyre Australia has been the supporter of the old V8 touring car series for 12 years. We developed a tyre specifically for the supercar specification, and so they put that investment in time, money, and energy for the last 12 years. So we got together at Kumho head office and said we think there's an opportunity to keep this relationship going and take a bit more front step in terms of keeping these cars on the track.
Matt, as the series manager, you're always looking to grow the AMRS. So to see these guys come on board, that's got to be pretty exciting from your perspective as well.
Oh, absolutely, KK. When Dave and I first caught up to have a conversation about the V8 classic cars coming to AMRS, what a great fit for AMRS that this category is going to be for us. We've got that, that the TA2 muscle car series that comes to the series and is a great crowd puller. But what a fantastic, a series to be able to bring inside AMRS, which is going to be fantastic from a spectator perspective and a branding perspective for particularly for themselves and for AMRS to be able to just get those cars out of the garages. As Dave rightly said, there's upwards of 300 chassis that are sitting in sheds. Why aren't they out being used? And they are worth a lot of money, so we need to protect them. We need to wrap them a little bit in the cotton wool side of things and make sure driving standards are correct and make sure that we manage it properly, that the cars don't get destroyed after their first race. But this is a great fit inside AMRS and a fantastic fit for us to partner with Dave in connection with Kumho to be able to deliver the category a national series. And presuming we can run a national series, obviously I think due to COVID, but what a great fit inside AMRS from the perspective of a category which needs a home and has got some fantastic branding about it that we can highlight through our series. So excited very much.
And David, from your perspective, what's the feedback with the category? I was going to say in the paddock, but we haven't been in the paddock for a while, have we? But what are the competitors telling you?
I'm getting a good reaction from competitors. Obviously, everyone's very hesitant in this COVID era, but they take time to get out of the garage and get ready. Quite a number of people are saying they're going to be there, and quite a number of the people know other people with these cars in the sheds, so they're telling their mates. So the word is getting around. We need to get a round, I hope, this year to start things off, and then it should snowball. Already people with cars that have restored them to original livery, so the public will recognise the cars and get excited about them. So, to see Jim Beam and Jack Daniels cars on the track and Castrol cars on the track and, Ford credits and so on like that, people know that from the past and will recognise them. So people want a chance to show off these cars. They've spent so much time and money. And because we as Kumho have had so much experience with them at this level, we think we can pull it off and get them on the track, and it seemed to be a really good fit with AMRS.
Terrific. David, on behalf of all of the team, we can't wait to get down there and unearth some of these stories because as a young reporter, that's part of what I enjoyed in my early years. It's getting to know the drivers behind it, the heritage of the cars they're racing, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you guys on board, and I can't wait to be amongst it, and I'm sure Matt and Lockie, you'd agree.
Absolutely, Kylie. And my many conversations with David and in connection with Kumho as well. I just wanted to also give a shout out to Kumho. They've been so supportive in continuing this category with the view to getting it flourish. I really wanted to give a good shout out to them as well. They are really all about they fit our model of engagement with the competitors and talking with their end user being their customer. They are giving some great prizes, fantastic fantastic prizes to the winners, and you don't even have to be a winner in this series, and you're going to get, you know, gift cards and sets of tyres and things like that. And they're being so supportive about encouraging the competitors to bring their cars out of the garages and get them on the grid. So I wanted to give a good shout out to the guys at Kumho, and obviously their connection through David there. So, but yeah, I can't wait to be able to deliver these cars on the track. We just need to be able to do it. So.
David Atkin, a pleasure to talk to you about what's in store. We can't wait to get out and see you in the flesh and see these cars up close and personal. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm really looking forward to pulling a grid together, and let's hope we can do it this year, but certainly 2022 looks pretty good.
Thanks, David. Appreciate your time today.
One of the cars that attracted a lot of attention during the final round of the AMRS in 2019 was a miniature Ford XB Falcon hardtop. That car was one of the first cars constructed to the new mini muscle car regulations. Now, mini muscle cars, it's a brand new category of scaled down versions of Aussie muscle cars which currently compete alongside the miniature race cars, the future races and the Aussie racing cars within the miniature race car series. One of the men who's been one of the brains behind the mini muscle car series is Garry Roberts, and Garry joins us right here on AMRS Unlocked. G'day, Garry. Thanks for joining us. What prompted you and your, I suppose, fellow conspirators from getting this mini muscle car concept underway?
Yeah, thanks, Lockie. G'day. Thanks for having us here today, mate. It was about 3 years ago, Shane Smith and I, Shane came up with the idea originally to start a miniature race car, our own concept muscle car, after racing with the miniature cars for quite a few years and the Aussie cars. His big thing was he wanted a two-seater car and he wanted it to look more like a car. And he suckered me in, knowing that I'd built a few sports sedans before, and asked for my input and asked if it could be done. And I'm sort of always up for a challenge, and so, well, we'll make it happen, mate. So he was his job to, I guess, do the bodies, and he puts in the perfection to make them, he sort of pushes us to the next bar to make them look exactly like they look like a real car. And I just get to do all the work and all the fun stuff. He just says, can you make this happen? And I say, I can do it like this. And he goes, no, we'll do it like that and do it. So I just have to do it. But no, it's good.
They're powered by a Rover V8 engine. That was the motor that you chose to go with to power these vehicles. And I think that was a combination of, you wanted an engine that was going to give them enough performance based on their weight to make them competitive with the other cars in the miniature race car field, but also there's a Ford, there's a Holden, and there's a Valiant Charger. You wanted an engine that wasn't aligned to any one of those three brands. You wanted an engine that was going to be manufacturer independent. How have you found that Rover V8 motor has been so far?
It's actually really surprised us. You know, we were a bit 50-50 on whether it would work, but we thought we would give it a go. And as Matt would know, you know, the guys at Benalla Auto Club have been unreal, giving us plenty of track time in the early days with the car. And yeah, we've just developed it. In the end, we didn't have too many issues, really. We developed it to be not super quick, just quick enough to be in the field with the future cars and the Aussie cars. We didn't want something that would be heaps quicker. It didn't need to be, because the idea is all the cars are the same. And yeah, it's turned out perfect. And our other objective was longevity, and the two cars that we've been running as test cars both did a test day at the Bend not long ago and did over 3,000 kilometres in a day, and they're still the same engines that we've run for the whole time and are still running now. And I did a leak down test on them. They're pretty much brand new.
Kylie, you're based in Albury-Wodonga, which is the heartland of Aussie muscle car fans, you would have to say. What do you think of the mini muscle car concept?
Yeah, well, Garry will remember I was at Winton when the XB was unveiled. I thought, how cool is this? And what I love about it is they look good, they sound great. they're quick. And I've been following you on Facebook, and I noticed when you went to the fans at Tailem Bend, it's sort of have it come on a ride and a try day, and some of the feedback, they look good, they sound great, it's faster than expected. And I just think anyone who's seen them or is up close with them are really captivated by them. Are you getting that sort of feedback?
Yeah, that's at the start we were sort of, Shane and I were both a bit naive about the whole concept. When we originally unveiled it, we took the car to I think Matt knew about it, and Chris, and about a dozen people, and we took it to Sandown Historics just on a whim. And our idea was drop it there Friday morning and bring it home Sunday night. And by Saturday, I had no voice left. Everyone was just like, the feedback was phenomenal. And then we sort of started to realise what we'd sort of made. And then when we went over to Tailem Bend, we had quite a few people come up to us and say, our only misgiving was the Rover engine, really. A lot of people were scared of it. And after just seeing the cars get absolutely flogged all day, like non-stop, they didn't really turn off from the time we started till the time we stopped, and got absolutely caned all day. And we just drove them on the trailer and brought them home, and literally took them to the next race meeting exactly how they are, straight off the trailer.
And also, I noticed you're getting the younger generation involved. You also went to a school, a Ringwood Secondary College. That's a good idea. Get the young ones involved to spark a bit of love, a bit of interest.
Yeah, we actually, a mate of mine from trade school way back in the day is a trade school teacher now, and Ringwood Secondary College over there does some apprenticeship trade stuff, and they had a car show and he asked us to take it over there, and the feedback even there was phenomenal. We got a trophy for the best car at the show, and just everywhere we take it, like we've actually got we're building an enclosed transporter, like a supercar one at the minute, but in the meantime we've got an open transporter, and to have the cars on the back of the trailer, like drive down the freeway, it's nothing to get every second car pull up beside you and take photos and videos. The passengers take photos and videos while you're driving along, and just everybody, you can't go anywhere with the truck without allowing an extra hour to talk to people about them.
And again, Matt, you must be so excited to have these guys on board and to see it right from that very beginning, doing that testing out at Winton and being very much involved. You must be pretty proud to have them on board, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely, KK. And Garry and Shane, they epitomise what we're all about. They're a great bunch of guys that we had a conversation with, as he quite rightfully said. He had them on display at Sandown Historics one day, and like you were beating through the crowd to try and get to them to say g'day one day type thing. But we had a conversation and said that they had a plan, and people that come to you with a plan and just say, this is what we want to do, we want to build them, we want to sell them, we want to have it, in time, we want to be able to create our own category, which means where they would step away necessarily from the miniature race car guys and just have their own category once they've got enough cars to do it. Can we do it? And of course you can. So we've been very supportive of Garry and Shane particularly, getting the cars developed, getting them on track, giving them the track time they need. The cars need obviously plenty of shakedown in the initial stages to know what's right, know what's wrong. But now they're regular competitors, one of the most regular competitors, throughout the miniature race car series, and it's just such a great bunch of guys to have along to your race meetings. Very supportive of AMRS. And it's just a great concept. There's such that whole muscle car, sort of the muscle car sort of, feel around the industry, but yet on a smaller scale is just, as Garry rightfully said, they just create so much interest. And like we've said previously about some of the other categories and stuff that we've got coming along, they're a spectator-friendly category. Good for their brand, good for our brand, and very excited to have the guys along when they come along. And they sound good. Yeah, which is the key. they sound good, look good, and Gary's half a good steerer. Only half. He's half a good steerer too. So he's very competitive in them as well.
So let's talk plans then for the series moving forward. As you touched on there, Matt, Garry and Shane, they had a plan. But I think one of the things is that when you start with a brand new concept like that and you have to develop it from the ground up and build it from scratch, the initial version is going to be quite time consuming and quite expensive to get right. So, Garry, as you move forward, are you finding ways of making these cars quicker and cheaper to build so that you can get more of them onto the track? Because clearly there's the interest there from people who want to race them.
Yeah, 100%, Lockie. We had a few goals, like I mentioned at the start. They had to sound good, they had to look good, they had to have 2 seats, and the other big goal was it had to be affordable racing. We tried to keep the original build costs down as low as we can, but also we were very wary of, taking shortcuts in the build. We didn't want the cars breaking down all the time, barring accidents, which happen in racing. We want, if a field of 25 cars start the weekend, we want a field of 25 cars to finish the last lap of the weekend. And that was one of our goals. The really big was longevity and reliability, which we think we've finally achieved. So now moving forward, as you say, time consuming. Basically, Shane and I and a couple of mates that popped in every now and then did the majority of the work until midnight, 4 or 5 nights a week in a year. And the next car, the HQ, we built in 13 days, pretty much 24 hours a day to get it to a race meeting. And since then, we've got a chassis builder in Hallam. We've tried to use all Australian companies for everything. I mean, obviously some parts come from overseas, but we buy them through Australian retailers. We don't go direct overseas to anyone, just to support the local racing community, which has been really important to us right from the start, but especially now during COVID. And just a local manufacturer engineer in place down in Hallam are building the chassis for us, and they've got 5 on the go for us right now, and 3 of them are pre-sold. So yeah, we're pretty excited.
Isn't that such a good Australian success story, Lockie? That's just good. That's really where we were, 12, 18 months ago with the inception of this, and now look where we are now. He's got 5, on the production line. That's fantastic.
Yeah, really, really good success story, not just for obviously the Mini Muscle Car series, but I think for the AMRS as well. And we can be very proud of how we've been able to support the wider Australian business community, not just within the motorsport industry, but beyond that as well, because obviously there's a lot of suppliers and manufacturers and component producers who are benefiting from making and selling products to suit the Mini Muscle Cars, which is absolutely fantastic. So hats off to you, Garry, and your offsider Shane, who have been the brainchilds behind the Mini Muscle Car series. Thanks for giving us a bit of an insight today here on AMRS Unlocked. And like all of our other guests tonight, we can't wait to see you and the Mini Muscle Cars back on track, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, thanks a heap, Lockie and Matt and KK. Thanks to everyone for having us on this first episode. I just wanted to put it out there. Everyone that we've ever contacted in the Australian company since we started, Raceworks, Hi-Tec, Fitzner Performance, who do the gearboxes for us, they've all just been phenomenal. But none more than AMRS. And let's be honest, without you guys letting us have somewhere to race, we would have nothing. So, we're really big on remembering who's helped us right from the start, and we're trying to be loyal to as many people as we can. And AMRS, we're here to stay. That we've run Thunder Sports, miniature race cars, and hopefully sooner rather than later we have our own category. But we're still quite happy to run in any category they'll allow us to get the numbers up there. And it's just all about the fans, and let them have a look at some cars and some decent racing. And Matt and the whole crew, you all do a fantastic job. And our cars are on the truck, loaded, ready to go. We've been halfway to Benalla twice and turned around because of COVID. And the second that Matt says the track's open, we'll be there.
Thanks, Garry. Your support and your comments, mate, are much appreciated. Thank you. It's very, very nice feedback to hear. And we're very, very supportive of you and your concept, mate. And it's just, as I said before, that muscle car concept, coupled with yourself and Shane being such good guys to deal with, and your heart is such in the right place. You epitomise what we want to see inside AMRS. So thanks again. Lovely to see you, and thank you for your time today.
No problems. Thanks heaps for everyone, and good luck with it all, and hope to see you at the track in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely, hopefully. Thanks again, Garry.
Thanks, guys.
Formula 3, it's a category that's known as a proven breeding ground for champions. If you're talking speed, if you're talking young drivers, this is the category that you really see them perform. And it's great because you see these young guys develop and grow, and who knows where they end up. To tell us more is Tim Macrow. He's a pretty pacey guy himself, a three-time former champion of Formula 3, and we see him all the time in the paddock. And now you've really got skin in the game. You're a big fan of this as, I guess, a team owner and part of one of the invited categories that gets to compete at AMRS. Welcome aboard Formula 3. For those uninitiated, what do you love about it?
Well, I've always been a big fan of open wheel motorsport, wings and slicks. I suppose it's my dad's fault in that regard when he used to race in the 80s. And these cars are just the most amazing cars to drive. And, the younger guys and girls can learn a lot in the cars. But also these cars are, corner speeds, equivalent to almost F1 cars. So they're just absolutely spectacular to drive and hopefully spectacular to watch as well.
Yeah, now we saw one of your fellas, Ben Taylor, did well at SMP, and you're seeing these guys go from karts and progress. So it's a pretty big step up. But what are they learning, and what's so important for them in their motor racing journey in the step up? And what do you tell them, and what are you impressed by them when you see them come up?
Well, Ben made a step from karting all the way through to Formula 3 straight up. So he basically came to us. We did a lot of simulator stuff. We had him in a Formula 4 and then straight into Formula 3. And to be honest, the F3 cars have a lot in common with some of the karts that these kids are actually racing in sprint kart tracks. Lots of grip, good power. The biggest thing they've got to learn is aero. And with these cars, there's a lot of aerodynamics involved. It's very hard to get used to how the aerodynamics work. So basically, if you go faster, you've got more grip. So it's a big, steep learning curve, and Ben did an amazing job. Like, that was his first ever race of anything in motorsport in cars, and he absolutely made a couple of mistakes here and there, but the speed was there, and he won the final and did a great job at Eastern Creek.
And it must be hard for the young guys in this time because they're just so enthusiastic. They had a taste of it at SMP. How are they keeping focused, and what's the advice that you're giving these young chargers that you're around?
Well, it's actually really difficult. A lot of them they just want to go out and race, and especially because we got a bit of a teaser in there. We got one round in. During sort of when we could, we have been at Winton from time to time and doing some testing. But I mean, the biggest thing that they can do at the moment is jump on the simulator and practice some circuits before hopefully we go there later in the year. And if they can, when Metro lockdown and when the lockdowns are no longer with us, go and do some karting and all that sort of stuff. But it is a difficult situation to be in, and trying to keep everybody engaged and trying to have something to look forward to is the biggest thing. So fingers crossed for later in the year we can get to a few circuits and go racing.
And Lockie, you love it. It's that pure form of motorsport, isn't it? And you're watching these future stars, and that's one of the things I've really enjoyed over the journey too.
Well, Formula 3, I think here in Australia, it's had its ups and downs, which have been well documented. But one of the things that we've seen recently at an international level is Australian drivers performing really well in the FIA Formula 3 World Championship, which supports Formula 1 and is a stepping stone to F2 and ultimately F1. We saw Oscar Piastri won that championship last year. There's a couple of other very talented young Aussies in there at the moment. Callum Williams, who's a former Australian F3 champion, and also Jack Doohan. So, Tim, how much has the results and the success of these Aussies in international F3 reflected in terms of popularity for drivers now looking to compete in the Australian Formula 3 Championship?
Yeah, it's been really important. I've never really had so much inquiry until, these kids, Piastri and so on and so forth, and Williams, have really made the step up to FIA F3. The kids are watching it on TV and they've seen it and they've Googled Australian Formula 3 and we've come up. So we are getting lots and lots of inquiry. And, I think in Australian motorsport, there is a little bit of a hole in Australian motorsport in our ladder. And I think Formula 3 fills that void. And, I'm hoping in the next couple of years, the popularity will, sort of keep going on the right trajectory. And hopefully we're going to be running some more cars later in the year with some kids in it. And I really think that this stepping stone is super important. And I think the biggest thing is that if we can get the kids into the F3 in Australia locally, at least for a year, they can learn a lot before they head to Europe or US or whichever sort of direction they want to go. So at a good rate too, like it's cost effective, a lot more cost effective than Europe. So if we can get them for a year here, I think the category will grow.
Is there any possibility, Tim, of us seeing newer cars in the Australian Championship anytime soon? Because at the moment, it's the Dallara F3 0811, I think, is the newest model that we've got here, which is now the car that's the best part of a decade old. Do you think that it's for the future of Australian F3? Do you think it's something that needs to happen for us to get newer cars into the category?
Absolutely, and we're working on that already. I have. It's just landed in Australia. Hopefully it's in a container in Sydney. We have an F3 12 to 17, which has landed. So that's essentially a generation behind where they are now. So that'll hopefully catch us up. And that car, we can actually turn that into a halo car eventually. So I think it's got to be step by step. Obviously, we want to keep our costs in check. So, I mean, in the past, we've always been like one generation behind Europe, and that is what made the category cost effective, and we can get their secondhand cars. So, I think when that car's online, that's hopefully going to open up the floodgates a little bit. People will see it, and we'll press on from there. And then hopefully in the next year or so, we can get into some halo cars as well.
Matt, you must be excited. We've got all ends of the spectrum, haven't we? It depends where we're racing, but when these guys come to town, it just adds that little bit of extra element, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, KK. Excuse me. When the Formula 3 guys are on track, it's lap record breaking sort of stuff. When we were able to run properly back in 2019, and we were running, I think there was correct me if I'm wrong, Lockie, but there was a round we did at Wakefield Park at the end of 2019 where the lap record I think got broken in Saturday afternoon's race twice or something to that effect. Like, it was just, the cars are phenomenally quick, and to take Tim's point from before, that whole corner speed situation with these cars, with the aero and how fast they can go through corners. You don't see any other race car go through corners as quick as what these things do. It's a phenomenal speed around, and they're extremely quick. Between Tim, obviously Ian Richards is the category manager for F3 based over in Adelaide, the Gilmores in Queensland, three very, very key stakeholders to the success of Formula 3 and the invited category that sits inside AMRS, and we're very grateful to all three of those key stakeholders for their contribution to AMRS, and they when you want to talk about what Tim said before, kids coming out of karting, what other series invests in that growth from karting? Where is their pathway? Is it to go out of karting into one of the formulas, and Formula 3 is one of them. And I know Tim and Ian and Gilmore's especially, they invest a lot of their time, both personally and professionally, into the kids to nurture them and develop them to get them when they come out of karts. So very pleasing to see, and AMRS is very proud to be the ground that they essentially the dance floor for these guys to come and bring their customers and put these kids on track. And Ben Taylor's, just to pick up your point from before, KK, Ben Taylor's a prime example of that. Absolute prime example of it. He's come out of karts, Tim's nurtured him and given some instruction, and now look at him, he did really well at SMP. So yeah, very, very happy with that.
Timmy's saying all the right things, isn't he? We're in a healthy spot. You've got the kids there, they're keen, they want to do it. That Scott McLaughlin factor, I mean, I know we've touched on sort of looking at people abroad and seeing what they're doing. Is he one of the ones that the young guys are aspiring to see where he's ended up?
Absolutely. Yeah, look, America has a really good pathway system. I actually went to the US and did some Atlantic stuff when I was coming out of Formula Ford and Formula 3. So that's a great pathway, and yeah, absolutely, we'll be looking at some kids I actually have who come through our simulator sessions are looking to America, and some are going to Europe. So there's definitely two sort of paths you can take. And the US one is definitely being one of them, and yeah, you can thank Will Power and all those guys for that as well, and even the New Zealanders and Scotty Dixon and all those guys have really shown that IndyCar is a place you really want to be.
Well, Tim Macrow and lads, I think you'll all join me in saying thank you for joining us. Any final thoughts about your involvement in AMRS when you're able to compete?
Look, we just can't wait to get on track. The AMRS have provided us a platform that is fantastic for our category. It's cost effective. We can get kids through at a really young age as well. We can get some 14, 15-year-old kids in. These kids need to be in cars as quickly as they can, and get them out of carts, get them through the cars, get them through the system, and it's great that we actually do have a platform in this country to be able to put some kids in wings and slicks cars before they head overseas.
Tim Macrow, thanks again. You're such a great ambassador for our sport. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have our first episode of AMRS Unlocked. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did to deliver it to you. Again, I thank the team at Fuzzy Media for putting together the AMRS studios, and thanks once again to the AMRS media team for being able to give up their time for us to be able to have some interviews with our category managers and our respective competitors. Guys, one last comment before we close off the show. KK, starting with you.
Oh, look, thanks, guys. This has just got me all excited, just talking and being able to interview and hear from everyone that we've heard from today. It's just got me itchy to get back out and get going. So I'm double vaccinated. I'm ready to go. Hope you guys are too, and hopefully sooner rather than later we'll go racing.
Thanks, KK, and lovely to see you, and good luck with those upcoming council elections later in the year. We all vote one, KK, vote one, KK. Tony Shebex, hopefully you get out of quarantine at the end of 14 days.
Yes, exactly. AMRS Unlocked. I hope to be unlocked down in the next,
Absolutely.
I think I've got 8 days to go. So if we do another episode in the next few weeks, I'll look forward to being in the studio with you, Matt, and hopefully, fingers crossed, my goodness, getting to a racetrack very, very soon.
Thanks, Tony, for your support. And ladies man himself, your thoughts?
Well, I think one of the things that we've discovered is that while motorsport might have ground to a halt, enthusiasm among our competitors in our categories most certainly hasn't. So I'm very optimistic that once we get out of lockdown and once restrictions ease, we're going to see bumper fields across all of our categories at AMRS race meetings moving forward, and I can't wait to be back trackside.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our show to a close. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've had a lot of fun putting it together. Thank you so much to our guests that joined us on the show today, and thanks to our awesome media team for helping me put the show together. We hope to be able to deliver our September event. If we can't, watch our socials, watch our website, and you'll get further information about when our next event's going to be. Bye for now.